Welcome back, and we are now going to get started with our warm-ups again. And to get us started off on 2018 the right way, we are going to do a little bit of a review on a regular basis through our warm-ups of some of our short story notes and nonfiction notes and poetry terminology, because we need to have those as a good strong background, especially since we are going to be doing some text-dependent analyses between those types of literature over the next month or so. And so each day when you come in, you're going to see a little video that will be playing, hopefully on loop, if I get that right, of me going over some of these terms with you. And you'll see a little screen like this and some notes that'll get us started. So we're going to move through this now. I'm going to disappear because I don't want to be in the way of the notes. But your responsibility is to take notes as you go. Yes, I will provide guided notes on Google Classroom, but that does not excuse you from taking notes yourselves. There is something to be said for writing down notes. That helps you actually keep them in your memory. So you need to write down what we go over in each one of these little sessions. Okay? Let's get started. So, with short stories, we need to remember short stories can be up to a good 60 pages in length. And that doesn't seem short, except for the fact that, remember, you're comparing it to like a novel. And so short stories are meant to be something that could be consumed, so to speak, in one sitting. So when you sit down and you watch a TV show, or when you sit down and you watch a movie, that you do generally in one sitting. And once upon a time, you didn't have TVs and movies. So a short story was what you would use to do that for you. So a short story is still technically short, even if it's 60 pages. When we go into the purposes for short stories, authors write for really one of two main reasons. They're writing to instruct you in something, they're trying to teach you something, but they're also trying to entertain you. So those are two very broad things. So the questions you have to ask yourself is, what lesson are they trying to teach you, or are they trying to share a funny story with you? Can they do both? Yes. Do they have to do both? No. Those are really the purposes for short stories. Okay, I'm back a little bit, so I've got this. I have now the nonfiction notes up briefly here, because if we're going to be doing some compare and contrast and finding similarities and differences, we want to be able to do the same thing with the notes as we go through them. So, just briefly, I want you to recognize that we went over the most basic things about short stories, so we'll go over some of the most basic things about nonfiction. Okay, so when we're talking nonfiction, we need to recognize that while fiction is stuff that is made up, Nonfiction is based primarily on fact. Pay attention to that word right there, primarily. That is super important because nonfiction does not mean 100% fact. It doesn't mean that you've told a lie or that you have fiction. However, it does mean that it's based on the author's observations and the author's perspective, which we all know that different people can have different viewpoints. So it can be argued that other people would say that they saw something else. So that is very important. You'll also see that it's prose writing. It's going to present and explain ideas. It'll tell about things that are real. So real people, places, objects, and events. And when we see this word prose, you really, really need to know this word. It is important that you know that prose and poetry are the two major different types of writing. So prose is sentences, paragraphs, grammatically correct, and then you have the stuff that's not prose, which is poetry, drama, and song. Song and poetry go together. Drama is an exemption because it's not written in sentences and paragraphs because it's what people are speaking to one another. So that gets to be an exception as well. And while in a short story, the author intends to instruct you or to teach you about something like a moral or a lesson, and then they like to entertain you, in nonfiction, there are three main purposes. You'll notice that they do cross over. There's inform and entertain. Informing and teaching are not one and the same. Informing and teaching can be similar because you can have an informative piece that does teach you how to do something, but an informative piece can also simply inform you on a car crash that happened. They're not teaching you how to get into a car crash, but they're informing you about a car crash that happened. They're simply providing information as a service. That's where the news comes in and things like that. Entertaining you can, oddly enough, you can think that nonfiction is boring, but there is an entire genre of nonfiction that is entertainment based. And I'm going to pull myself back into the screen shortly to be able to show you that. So here's a moment of truth for you. When I was younger, I really was not a fan of nonfiction, or at least I thought I was not a fan of nonfiction. Because when I was thinking of nonfiction, I thought of probably the things that you think of. I thought of textbooks and going and doing research projects on dead people. That's what I thought of. That's what I thought was nonfiction. No. This book right here, Wild, by Cheryl Strayed. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. I don't have good spatial awareness. Not only a bestseller, but also has become a motion picture. Not Renee Zellweger. Whatever her name was. I forget who it was. She starred in this. This is a memoir. This is an amazing piece of narrative nonfiction. Sort of actually, sort of textbookish, but when you find something that you're interested in, you can actually focus on that. So this piece right here, Your Brain, The Missing Manual, this is interesting, very interesting. Can also be a piece that you might, if you find something that you personally are interested in, you'll find interesting. My husband, if we've talked at all, you know my husband really loves the WWE and wrestling, and he's even made a board game out of it. So we have in our house several nonfiction books written by either WWE people themselves or ghostwriters who they tell their stories to. So either biographies or autobiographies, memoirs, they fall into that category. So we have the Shawn Michaels one, Heartbreak and Triumph. We have one about Batista. We have, those are about particular people. We also have The Rise and Fall of ECW. Those are all non-fiction books, but they're interesting because they are topic specific about things that you're interested in. Also, books that are very specific and things that you can pick up and actually like that are nonfiction. Anna Kendrick's Scrappy Little Nobody. This one's highly interesting if you like traveling. Tales of a Female Nomad. And if anyone likes Craig Ferguson, American on Purpose. So, nonfiction is something that you can find a way to like. It doesn't have to be researching about boring people who are dead in wars and science projects. No offense to people who like science or teachers and things like that, but those were the things that I thought it was limited to when I was younger, and I've learned that it's so much more. So back to our actual point. Nonfiction also has the purpose of trying to persuade or convince you of something, and that's where argumentative and persuasive writing comes in as well, and opinion pieces. So those are all slightly different, and of course when we hit those we'll go over them specifically. But that should show you the difference between nonfiction and short stories. Alright, final little bit here. Now that you've watched this video, and you should have been taking notes that whole time, you are going to make a real short Venn diagram, and you're going to put in there the similarities and differences within your Venn diagram between the short stories and nonfiction, the author's purposes for that. That should be a really simple, really quick task, so it shouldn't take very long at all. Thanks so much, and then we're going to get started. We're going to start reading A Retrieved Reformation. That's what we're going to read today.